Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flicks Forum podcast with Jesse, Heater, and MJ. In this week's episode, we will be discussing Netflix's 15th film, the 2016 horror film, I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. Directed by Osgood Perkins, starring Ruth Wilson, Paula Prentiss, Balaban and Lucy Boynton. Welcome, boys, our 15th episode.
15!
We're going to meet all these little milestones, which are pretty exciting, I think.
Because we're setting the bar low. Like, we were pretty excited about milestone. 15!
15's huge.
15's
huge.
Nah, 15's great.
That's good, yeah.
We are so committed to this cause, and we have a lot of fun doing it, and we can't wait to keep doing it.
Definitely. So this week we're looking at a horror film. Is this our first horror?
This is the first horror.
This is the first horror.
Netflix's first horror film.
So something a little bit different to discuss today. So let's kick off with our 30-second summary, our fast flicks of the film. MJ, how about you hit us off today?
Let's do it. A slow-paced supernatural horror revolving around a haunted house. As you learn more about what is happening to our protagonist Lily in this house, you unfortunately get less engaged. The scares are alright, but they are few and far between, and you won't need to sleep with the lights on that night.
Good. All right, Heater.
It took me a while to write this because I had to think a lot about what the actual movie was about, but I've gone with a young woman takes a job as a live-in nurse for an elderly former horror writer and slowly becomes obsessed with a character from her books.
I think you've picked that up well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty good.
okay, good, because I was confused.
I've gone, so Lily moves to an isolated house to care for an elderly lady who was once an author in her previous life. Her books scare Lily, but they have clues about what has happened in the house and what may happen to her.
It's a really cool premise when you break it down.
It is, yeah.
Listen to it.
I feel like it's got and I feel like the opening did a really good job with that, with the dialogue over the top, just the voiceover of exactly what the house was about. So I was like, it's a house with a death in it, can never be sold or bought by the living. It can only be borrowed from ghosts that have stayed behind.
I love that.
It's such a good setup.
It was such an eerie start, and I was like, all right, this is good. Oh, I'm just saying here.
I didn't like that opening scene. I liked the opening monologue, and I liked it, but I didn't just want just that girl sitting there for the entire time. I would have preferred where maybe we see a bit more of the house and maybe kind of going through it all. I just didn't like it all, just kind of that sit still on one screen as it all went through.
It did go a bit long.
Yeah. There's a lot of blackness on the screen.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was overcome by the next shot was just that circular sort of silhouette shadow of going through the house, like in that one.
I would just prefer that way that the monologue was going. I just was a bit, just kind of...
It did go a long time,
yeah.
and it was I think it was 2.5 minutes until the title sequence came up, and then it was another minute and a half of more monologue on the back of that.
I feel like this film did that quite a lot through a lot of scenes. Like the camera just stayed in the one spot for way too long.
But I think that was, and this bothered me as well. I didn't like it as a technique. I think it was this idea of the scare's coming. Actually, there's no scare.
Yeah.
And I think it was
deliberate.
It was a deliberate technique that he was like, it doesn't. This is not your typical horror film.
Yeah. No.
But it does beg the question that we have to ask straight away: is there such thing as a title that's too long?
That's a good question.
I must say, I like this film title.
Did you?
Yeah, good title. I liked it.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd like it or dislike it, but it's a sentence.
I don't mind a long film title.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I really like this film title. Yeah.
I'm torn.
It was good.
I initially didn't like it.
Well,
I can't see the
what do you
fit.
If you had to call it something else, what could you call it? Because
You can call a film anything. Really.
I feel like the title, and really good question because I hadn't even thought about it, but I feel like the title is really good because it could be that title relates to all three of the females in the house.
Yeah.
So, because all three of them are the pretty things in the house. So I feel like looking back on the film, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I actually do like that, thinking about it. It is long, but yeah.
I like the title. Yeah.
This is a really good segue that I actually didn't mean to make, but well done by me. Oz Perkins, the director.
Yeah, I love this.
His previous film was a similar sort of horror film called The Black Coat's Daughter, and he wanted to call that film February, but the studio A24 said no, and they basically titled it for him. And he's completely stoked with the amount of free reign he got at Netflix. And I guess one of those things with free reign is the fact that he got to name this film whatever he wanted. So it almost feels like the title has more significance because he's all over the title because he knows what it's like to not have naming rights to your own film. So that's very interesting that he's chosen something like that as a title.
And I love that he's created these 2 horror films, and he's the son of Anthony Perkins, who
Awesome.
One of all-time favorite films, Psycho, Norman Bates. And this film, he has like a few nods to his dad.
Massively.
With so there was like a song in there called "You Keep Coming Back Like a Song," which is actually performed by his dad. And then there's like a clip on the TV of Friendly Persuasion, which starred his dad as well. And he was actually in Psycho 2 as like the kid version of his dad as
So
well.
how cool to be growing up with like Norman Bates as your dad. If you were a budding, film director, I mean, this guy's done it all: acting, writing, directing. How much awesome exposure would you get to your dad working on set and stuff? Like, this would be the best way to get yourself into the best world of film.
Apprenticeship.
He was almost like he was almost one of the, like, he's got that Harry Potter syndrome. Like, Daniel Radcliffe is always going to be stereotyped as Harry Potter, and Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, he struggled to get work outside of doing psycho films. That's why he did so many psycho films, because everyone's like, you're Norman Bates, we're not going to hire you in anything.
He did a bit of directing, which I didn't know as
He
much
did,
of. Yeah.
Which is really good. What else did we find out about this film?
Canadian film, filmed in Ottawa, in Canada, and nominated for the Best Canadian Feature Film at the Toronto Film Festival.
Yeah, so another TIFF film. So it debuted there in September 2016 before hitting Netflix October 28th, the 28th of October. So Halloween release.
Yeah,
Netflix with their clever sort of promotional department, a couple of days before Halloween, gave it a good chance to run on Netflix and have that.
But as we sort of spoke about with, is this a normal full-blown horror? Or is it like, I almost see it as like this art house horror, right?
It's definitely arty.
And I think Netflix, yes, they didn't want to miss a beat by opening it just before Halloween, but they didn't market it as a full-blown horror as well. They were still true to what the film was about. Look, you've got a film called I Am the Pretty Little Thing That Lives in the House. The genre is horror. Like, it's going to fit in well with the Halloween movie, but they didn't try and like force feed it into what like a studio would do to get it out there and say, hey, this is the new horror film. This Halloween, you have to go watch it. So it's clever in both respects. And again, I think Oz Perkins was pretty happy with the way that they kind of did that.
Yeah. Critical consensus. Rotten Tomatoes, it's on 58% from 19 reviews, so I think that's on the rotten side of things. Anyone else have any other?
2.6 stars on Letterboxd.
Yeah. Okay.
6,500 ratings.
Seemed pretty mixed. Reviews from critics. Read a few reviews. It was pretty mixed in general. Some liked, some didn't.
Yeah. What did we like about some of these characters?
Before I got completely lost in looking at Osgood Perkins. Like, I found it really fascinating. I also, cause he's an actor in Legally Blonde,
and the new Star Trek series.
Is he?
Yeah.
But if you saw him, the picture of him on the scenes of him in Legally Blonde, have you seen Legally Blonde?
Not in a long time.
Not in a long time.
I also hadn't seen it in a long time either, but I recognised him straight away. I'm like, that's who he is. Like, you would absolutely know this guy. But I always like, obviously this is a podcast about Netflix, and one of the things I find most interesting is diving into the whole working relationship that you have with Netflix.
Yep.
And basically with this movie, Netflix saw his previous film, The Blackcoat's Daughter, and were just like, what else you got brewing? And he kind of had an idea brewing, which was this film. And he sort of said, this is what I'm thinking of. And they're like, yeah, cool, we love it. So he put together a screenplay. Basically, the next day, Netflix was like, yep, sweet, here's your money, which he reckons was 2.5 times the amount of money that he thought he needed for it. When they were filming it, no one from Netflix arrived on set in any way. After the film was finished, he sent it to them, and he's just like, this is it. And they basically had, yep, no worries, that's fine, no changes, no notes. I think by the end of it, they had 4 or 5 notes on the entire thing, and he was like, and they're all really good, they were fine. And he did it, and he's like, I think he's joking about like, I'm never going to work with anyone but Netflix again, but he's like, it's full creative control. Like you basically own the entire thing.
Which is good because, like, apart from Blumhouse or A24, like a big studio probably wouldn't have made this film.
Yeah, did you get the Blumhouse reference in this?
I think I've read about this.
Well, Iris Blum, was the writer, and the whole thing was at her house.
Yeah.
So this was a Blumhouse film.
Yeah.
Hey. Very clever. I like that as well.
I did read that.
The last thing that I found out about this film that was like this was what got me, because one of the things that bothered me the most, I know we're going to talk about characters in a sec, was the character of Polly.
Yeah.
I guess, she wasn't technically in the film, but they reference her as the person.
Saw a few
who gets killed.
flashbacks.
Yeah. Her story in this film, and obviously I didn't know this when I was watching it, is based on an American folk song called Pretty Polly, which is about a guy who takes his girlfriend out into the woods one day and was basically like, look, I dug a grave and now I'm putting you in it. And that's basically the story. He kicks some dirt over her and he leaves her, and then the birds kind of sort of have a bit of a hard time dealing with the fact that there's this like grave here. And that is the story of Polly in the film, where her husband obviously kills her, leaves her in the wall, and then obviously the house
Has trouble with,
And and I actually listened to this folk song after and it's a very weird song.
And I think
And creepy,
did I read somewhere as well? The director got his brother to record the song.
No, his brother did all the sound for it, because his brother's a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
But they actually got one of their friends to play like a what's the instrument, a fiddle throughout the Pretty Polly theme song throughout the film.
It's cool.
That's cool.
Just makes you realise how much more effort goes into a film than what you think. Because one of my biggest gripes was that character of Polly. I'm like, I need to know more about this character. You're not telling me anything.
Yeah,
And,
that's good.
It's
That's
awesome.
really interesting.
I was very impressed.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of respect now for old Oz Perkins.
Yeah.
All right, so you spoke about Polly. I didn't really feel like you needed to care about any of these characters to have a feel for the story. Because if you go in with this assumption or these preconceived notions, it's a horror film. You know that at some and from the opening monologue, she says, "I'm not going to make it to my next birthday.
I'll never be 29 years old.
Never be 29 years old."
I didn't like that, being told that she was going to die at the end.
At the start, I liked it. I liked it because I think it's a really cool technique, and I love the way American Beauty did it.
Yep.
Well, it's awesome how you're sitting there thinking the whole time, like, holy, he's going to die. But I agree with you, by the end of it, because I was kind of waiting for her to die, it felt odd because she was never really in any inherent danger throughout the film.
No. Yeah. I didn't like being told that she was going to be killed.
I liked it at the start, but the first start of I was that monologue, I was like, oh man, sign me up. Let's do this.
Yeah. What did you think of Ruth Wilson? Because I love her in Luther. I'm pretty sure that you like her in Luther as well.
I do love her in Luther as well. I feel like that she was the best part of the film, but I feel like the voiceovers were a bit of a downfall as well. I feel like there were constant voiceovers and retelling of the story through her voice, and I feel like the voice didn't really connect with me the way that she was reading it or retelling it.
I thought she was okay.
Yeah.
But
I thought her acting was alright.
Yeah, it's okay. I feel like a lot of the things even she said, just because I see her as Alice Morgan in Luther, she sounded a lot like she talks in Luther, I thought. Like just the mannerisms and what she said. Just I'm not sure, I just couldn't get her out of my head from Luther. But I thought she was okay in this, but nothing amazing.
I was impressed with her early, and I was actually really intrigued by Lily as a character. I think as the character got more and more isolated and kind of dipped into this little bit of insanity by the end of it, I thought that Ruth Wilson struggled with that a little bit and struggled selling it to me. Like, I kind of knew that she was getting a bit weird and going a bit strange.
Yeah.
But it didn't resonate as well.
I'm sort of the same with like MJ on the flashbacks of Polly. I felt they were really drawn out and not really needed, and I felt like there was no dialogue between her and her husband at all. Like the guy that was going to kill her eventually, and the story, the telling was just done through.
Which I think made the scene seem a lot more drawn out as well, because there was no speaking. I felt like a lot of them went on for a bit too long.
It was very.
Are we getting into this right now? Why was she blindfolded walking around the house?
I read somewhere that was like some sort of game set in that sort of era that they were supposed to be from or something.
Like a Marco Polo
type of game.
It didn't make sense at all.
But like it was like
I struggled with that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. What stood out to start with before we try and, because I think there's going to be a few things that maybe we struggled with a bit in this film.
Like some good scenes?
Yeah, some good scenes.
I liked in a few of the kind of, I guess, more creepier scenes when she's on the phone and you see the upside down chair on the wall.
On the wall, yeah.
I was like, that's creepy. Like, was that there before? I actually rewound it to see if it was on the ground.
It was in the
first,
kitchen,
and
wasn't it?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the kitchen, yeah. And I'm like, oh, no, it's just always been there. There's just a chair stuck upside down on the wall. I'm just like...
Again, that was so
It's
clever.
a horror movie. It's creepy. I'm creeped out by it.
That was so
Like,
clever that he did that.
Yeah.
Like, because that was actually, I reckon, almost the scariest scene of the film.
Yeah.
And I did the exact same thing. I reckon everyone did. Like, there's a chair on the roof. Like, she's
Yeah.
going to figure out there's a chair on
Yeah.
the roof.
And
But
then-
it was just normal.
When the phone cord gets
Awesome.
lifted, I was so creeped out by
That
that.
was a really-
It was great. It was great.
That was a good scare.
Yeah, I was. That was really creepy. I thought and it was fantastic.
I thought the soundtrack build on that scene was too much, and it was just so obvious that something was going to happen. So I didn't find that scary at all because I thought the soundtrack build, and it's like the phone gets yanked. It's like okay,
Yeah.
But you're watching a horror film and you know that you're going to get scares. So
Yeah.
you can always sort of, at the back of your mind, thinking, what's going to happen here? I actually thought the scene was well paced.
Yeah.
With her on the phone, really isolated. And yeah, like, you knew that the scare was coming and you were looking around for it. Like, the chair was one thing. You kept
Yeah.
looking in the dark because they had all those scenes to the other room in the dark.
Yeah.
And they didn't overdo it though. Like, he yanked the cord, the phone went out, and that was it. And I like that he didn't overdo it then. And then I think at the end you do see the spirit of Polly, like,
Yeah.
walking like backwards,
Yeah.
but walking past. That was an awesome scene.
Yeah, I liked it. It was a good scene.
I wanted more of that.
I'll
was
talk
creeped
a
out
bit
by-
more in that when we get to scenes that I didn't
I
like.
was creeped out by it, which is what you want to be in a horror movie. It was creepy. I also really liked. I think it happened a few different times. The corner of the rug being folded over,
Yeah.
and then she walks past and kind of unfolds it. But just every time it's like,
You did
why
or
is
you
that
didn't?
being I liked it. It was great. Yeah, I
So
really liked it.
I really like that, and I included that in like this. There's all these mundane things in the house that we continually got the shots of. So like it literally starts off when she goes snooping through that drawer, and then she slaps herself saying, "I can't go in the drawer."
That was a bit weird. That slap.
It was a bit weird, but then so you go from that, then you go from the carpet on the corner that she has to keep putting down. She keeps going back to the TV, the pair of shoes that were always sitting on the staircase that you got continuous shots of, the business card that kept getting, and the cassette player. There are these mundane objects in the house that you kept going back to, and I really liked that. I really did like it because they're all things that related somehow to what was going on. I thought that was good. Yeah.
That rug scene was actually one of the 2 times that my dog Todd barked.
Todd update. We haven't had a Todd update in a while.
I know, and he's been really quiet. There's been nothing that really got him with these films. But when she kicked that rug down,
Yeah.
he went nuts. And I have no idea why, and I'm hoping he didn't see some sort of spirit on the screen.
Oh,
So-
creepy. That makes it even more creepy.
yeah, he got really, there's another, when else did he? He actually barked also when she was cutting that box up. But I also think maybe he was just, because there were so many creepy house sounds.
Yeah.
And then maybe that was just the times that he reacted to the creepy house sounds. But if you do have a dog while you're watching this film, you may get a couple of barks. Although my dog's a bit of a psycho.
My favourite scene in the film was in the bathroom where she's brushing Mrs. Blum's hair.
Near the end.
Near the end, yeah. And Ms. Blum's tells Lily, you don't talk anymore, you always turn your back, your feet are facing the wrong way when you walk, you hardly resemble yourself. And I thought that was a massive turning point, and that just made me think so much about lots and lots and lots in this film. And I think that was the turning point, because up to there I was like, this is pretty slow, this is taking a while to get where we're going, and then I was like, okay, I need to switch on.
So Mrs. Blum keeps seeing real Polly, who walks backwards and all this sort of stuff. And obviously they communicated, a while back when she was writing that book, because the book is about
Her story.
Polly's real story. But yeah, that was, I was similar in that sense where the last half hour maybe, I was working really hard, and I don't think I had to. That was what got me, is that I think by the end of it, I was like, I've missed something, and I hadn't. I think this film kind of made you think that there was more to it, when maybe there wasn't from a narrative perspective. Like, when the film finished, I initially thought, obviously, Polly comes out of the walls, creeps out Lily, basically frightens her to death.
Yep.
And then Miss Blum has no one to care for her, so she eventually dies as well. That's what I thought happened, and I'm like, nah, there's more to it. But I don't think I did. I think that's exactly what happened.
That's just what happened.
And I didn't miss.
So, I wanted to know, watching this film, when was the moment that she died?
Yeah.
And I
Which
struggled...
character, sorry?
For
Lily.
Lily.
Really? Okay,
maybe we'll talk about that a little bit
I
later
also
on.
didn't like that was Polly and Lily. That really kept confusing.
Yeah,
me.
it should
Too
have
similar.
been
Way too
two different
similar.
names.
Because
Yeah.
I was like trying to pick up on clues to think, hey, okay, so when did she die? When did she pass away?
So you thought she might have died earlier? Because
Yeah,
obviously she's roaming the house afterwards. I get what you...
Because like I feel like they tried to make it as if there's the scene where she's in the staircase and the camera cuts really close to her eye and you see that reflection in her eye and it's like she's screaming on the staircase, overacting, like grabbing at her throat, and it's like they're trying to make it out like that's the moment she dies. But to me, I don't
If you didn't, I would have enjoyed that. Okay.
I don't think that's when she died. I feel like she died earlier. We'll talk about that.
Okay,
and we'll talk about that a bit with the themes and questions later on. But I don't think that was when she died.
I'm all in to hear that.
Because I want to talk about a few more of the scenes that we didn't like and what we liked, and I think that will lead into a little bit more about when she actually died. I don't know. That's just my interpretation.
Yeah, I want to hear it. I do want to hear it
it.
because I was Googling, watching videos on this for an hour afterwards, just trying to
I
learn.
was trying to read a bit into like how it all happened.
I love the scene that was just like a horror homage to the Poltergeist when she's like sitting with the TV and it's like all static and she's like got her hand on it. Like that was definitely like a call out to Poltergeist. And then also like in that exact same scene, you just hear that that's TV static, like exactly like The Ring when you finish watching the movie. I thought that was really nice. A really nice small homages to some horror classics.
And, there was a scene towards the end when there's not much going on in the house and the dude's coming to fix the wall and no one's answering the door. And there was a shot where I think it was the door was knocking and the camera's just on the clock and the clock was stuck on 2:55 and not one of the hands were moving. And to me, I was like, that was awesome because I was just telling you, time stopped in that house.
Maybe it's like Ark and there's a time loop.
Maybe. But I really and the camera stayed, like I know the camera stayed on a lot of scenes, but that stayed on that clock and I was just like watching that clock. I'm like, there is nothing moving on that clock. And I really liked that.
Do you think that's a hint that maybe she died at 2:55?
Maybe 2:55, but I don't know which day. Because that staircase scene where she's grabbing her throat, that was at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
was it 2:55 a.m.?
Maybe. Any other scenes that stood out? Or we move on to some forgettable stuff?
Probably a good way to think because I'm not sure if I liked this scene or didn't. It was just when Polly gets killed by her husband, that just came out of nowhere for me.
But you knew that by that point you knew that she was dead and in the walls.
You knew that, but just that scene where he just goes and pushes I was like, oh wow, that was really unexpected. That was the scene of when she died.
I liked the way.
I'm not sure if I liked it, but it was just so unexpected for me.
I liked the way that they did the reveal of him though, the husband, because we saw like two prior scenes where he's like stalking around the house, but he's blurred out, like the ghosts are in the scenes, and you can't see his face, and you don't see his face until that scene where he goes and does that. And I liked that slow reveal of what he actually looks like and his actual face. I thought that was
mutton
good.
chops.
Yeah, very much. So one thing that really did my head in this was the constant sound of crickets in the background. They were in the house pretty much the whole time. She was inside. There were no windows open, and all you can hear are those crickets chirping the whole time. I'm like,
you get the impression that she does not leave that house. Like even to go to do the grocery shopping or anything.
No, she doesn't leave the house.
She does not leave the house in a year. Like it's nuts.
yeah.
But it's so isolated.
You guys were talking before that you really liked the suspense in that build up when she was on the phone. What really annoyed me about that scene was she's on the phone and she's like, wake up, you spaz, and like, you slut on the phone. Everything that we'd seen to her prior to that, she was like prim and proper. Everything about her was like elegant, sort of that. And it's almost like they're like, oh, we need to give her a bit of a backstory or give her a bit of development about who she was before she came to the house. And, in the conversation, she's like, oh, I nearly married this guy called Scott. And then that's all we know about her. Like, we didn't even need that.
So for me, no, that's what made it feel like the house just engulfed her. Because by the end of it, can you see her being on the phone making that call?
No.
I guess you didn't see it from the start, but I felt like that was her day one. She's there the very first night she's there. She's coming from another life.
Yeah.
So it would be weird not to because you think there and think this is a crazy job to be looking after someone 24/7. You're moving away from absolutely everything that you've got.
Yeah.
It's nice to admit the fact that no, she does have a life before this, and this is. The reason that she's trying to get away from all this is because she obviously had maybe a fiance or something that's not ending well. She needs a break from it. But then, as soon as a year passes, she would never do anything like that again, and that made me feel like this house has completely consumed her. And the more and more you saw her, the more, as I said, she was slipping into insanity. She was going crazy by the end of it, and I think that's a lot to do with this house and obviously the fact that there's a spirit floating around haunting it. So I kind of like that in that sense. Because I would have felt
it would have been alright if there was another scene where she was on the phone again, just to sort of maybe showing that she dipped into a little bit more of that insanity.
That she changed a little bit. I agree.
Yeah. Just to further because other than that, we don't know anything about her really.
No, we don't. And you know what? I think one of my issues with her as a character was because she's obviously she's really leading this film. Like you could argue that she's really the only character that you follow.
Yeah.
You've got Mrs. Blum who doesn't say boo, and you learn a little bit more. And then you've got a spirit, effectively, that you learn a little more. So it's all about Lily. And it annoyed me that she didn't have, more gusto about her, that she really could have uncovered the story a bit more. Yeah. I think they enjoyed the fact that, she's really scared of scary books and scary movies, so she's not going to, dive any deeper because it frightens her too much. But I think as a result, she never really investigated anything, and there was never any big climactic, reveal or intensity to anything. And that was because the character never led us there. But I also think that the director didn't care about that either. That's not what he was going for. But as a horror movie fan, I would have liked to have seen a bit more.
Yeah. And the only other real character that we saw was the dude who was in charge of the estate and had hired her. And I felt like his scenes were all pretty monotonous and boring and didn't really add anything, especially that scene where she's asking him for the financial support to help fix the wall, and he's real against doing anything like that.
Yeah, those scenes didn't really do much.
Yeah, and it also just kind of made her feel more and more isolated. There's no help for you here. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're on your own.
The scene where she finds that box in the cupboard.
Yeah.
That did my head in.
Where'd that come from?
That was so slow.
Why all of a sudden was she looking for a box?
Yeah. And why did she... she slowly cuts the box with the scissors and then opens the lid of the box even more slowly. It didn't create any tension at all. It was just and then when she opens it, it's there's a couple of bits of paper with some writing in the box.
What did she find?
It was just the story that she'd already... that was in the manuscript of the book.
Yeah, the manuscript.
So what's the difference between her picking that up and reading it and her going through the book that she was going through? I thought it was a really bad reveal.
Do you reckon that was Polly's manuscript?
Could have been Polly's writing of the story.
Maybe.
Because what did the box say? It said... it did say Polly in the box, didn't it? What did it say? It had... I can't remember, to be honest. It had...
Damn us.
I think it had Polly on the box. Any other scenes?
I think you mentioned it before when Lily's she's doing the script. She's screaming at the end, before maybe she might have died or whatever. But the screaming just didn't seem believable to me. I thought it was really bad acting. It was really bad acting. And I said I thought she was okay up until this point. I liked her from in previous works, and I liked her in this. But then I was no, that was a really bad scene. That was really bad acting from you. The screening was bad.
Yep. Do you want to go a little bit deeper?
Well, one thing, it's not a scene, but I didn't like the constant fade to blacks.
Yep.
It felt like it was just he didn't know how to put the scenes together, so he just ended it and then started a new one.
The first time that happened, I was like, oh. And that's made me thinking, going, wait, what do they normally do in movies? Because that just the first time
it's a lot more.
It didn't feel right for me at all.
They're very extended.
Massive.
Yeah.
It felt really strange the first time I was in there and kept doing it. Yeah, wasn't it? I didn't like that either.
Well, that was one thing again that I did find out about his interpretation, Osgood Perkins' interpretation of the film, is that he defined this film as a poem. So obviously writing this film, it was almost like he's trying to tell this story in poetry. And when you think about that, I'd actually be curious to watch it again with a completely different mindset. Because I can see what he's trying to do. So when I keep thinking you missed out on a scare here, why didn't you have an early scare like every other horror film does? You open with a scare. It didn't happen. When you're dragging out these scenes while you're doing it, he's not trying to make a Hollywood horror film. So that's the other reason that you can sort of go, okay, I see what you're doing. Doesn't mean I enjoy it any less or more. I like it. I like the way Hollywood do horror films a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So.
The extended fades to black almost I don't know whether he was trying to fit it in with the image of those ghosts appearing. So even though there were scenes where the ghost didn't appear,
you were expecting it to. Yeah.
So
that was definitely a technique of him, giving you unfulfilling your expectations.
Yeah. I want to talk about white as this color. It's white's meant to be this pure sort of color. And at the start, Lily makes this comment where she's like, I'm not required to wear white.
That was weird too.
Yeah, but she does it to reassure the sick that she can never be touched even as darkness falls on them. And I thought that was like this really... And I kept going back to this white scene. So she often had the white gear on, and when she's cleaning the kitchen, she's got that... She's cleaning out those berries or whatever it is in the colander, and then she gets like a splat on her white shoe. And then she later goes on with this voiceover. She goes, I am white as a sail. I tell myself that nothing gets on me, but it does me a little good. So it's almost like this pure white is like her succumbing to a death almost. It's like, and made me think about, okay, because it stood out to me after she said that, my focus was just on what she was wearing. And from when she said that onwards, she had that orangey, yellowy jacket on the whole time. So to me, I'm thinking as I'm watching, I'm like, okay, does that mean she's dead now? Because she's got this orangey, yellowy jacket on. She's no longer white. She's no longer pure. She's been affected by this. And then that was the scene where her arm sort of blows up with all that. That's, she's having that vision. Well. So that white sort of thing did my head in a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And the other thing was the flowers. I felt like the flowers were something that was really... So she was in the kitchen playing with those flowers, just talking to herself, playing with the flowers. And then as soon as she opens the book up for the first time, and there's that pressed flower in the book. And then when she's in that scene I was talking about, where she's in the bathroom brushing Mrs. Blum's hair, she goes, left alone, even the prettiest things rot, you fall apart like flowers. I was like, oh my God, I need to go back and think about all these scenes with flowers. Like, this is like some symbol of these flowers. So at the start, they're alive and well in this vase in the kitchen, and the next time you see the flowers, it's like pressed and dead in the book. So it's like her she's like dead in that book. And I was just like, oh my God, like, where's this change that's happened from her, from being alive and being these bright flowers to being this pressed dead flower in a book.
I wish there was a more clear link.
I know, it's
when
really,
she could have died.
Exactly. And that's what really got me. So
like the Sixth Sense.
So the walls and the windows are as thin as bones. People could walk through them and up and leave. And it was like this metaphor that, does she want to escape? Does she want to get out of that house? If the walls are that thin, surely she could just get up and walk out, but she doesn't.
Because I don't think she ever thought she was in danger.
Yeah, I don't either.
She got creeped out a couple of times, but I don't think she was ever like, I need to get out of this house. Like, she could have.
Yeah, like it's not like, she was like, oh, I've seen this ghost, I've got to run. Like, I've got to get out of here. Yeah.
Well, the first...
She was creeped out the first night on the phone, though. That's what she's saying.
Yeah, but
she brushed it aside pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't think that's enough to make her want to run out of the house and never come back.
She was creeped out the first night, and she kind of just said, like, oh, obviously the cord wasn't as long as I thought it was, rah. And yeah, she was a bit creeped out when she's trying to turn the telly on and Mrs. Blum just walks in, boom, like that sort of scare. But then a year passes, like straight away that night, it's like, oh, this is like 11 months later. And you're like, oh, okay, so she's clearly okay.
Yeah.
She's gone a bit crazy. But...
And that's what the next thing that I want to... The reflections. So she's the TV with the static, you'd often see the reflection of what she's seeing in the background.
Well. I like that.
The first sort of scene was where I noticed the reflection was she was in the bathroom getting ready to go to bed one night, and she's doing her teeth or whatever she was doing in the mirror and reflection. And then at the end of the film, we see the new family in the house, and the tap's dripping, and the kid gets up out of bed and goes to the mirror, and you see his reflection in the mirror. When they first see their reflection in the mirror, is that when they die? Like, I don't know, like reflection, like is that when the ghost starts to say, I can see you through this reflection now?
Maybe, but I also got the vibe that Polly was a bit more of, whether over time or not, was a bit more of an insidious spirit to Lily. And Lily made the point of being like, you know how she repeats that quote, like, you can never buy a new house, you know, you can only borrow it from those who died in it. And she was like, you can borrow the house on Blum Street whenever you want from me.
Yeah.
So she was making the point like, yes, I'm here. Yes, I died in this house, but it's okay. Like, I'm not gonna cause you any havoc. But on the flip side, did Polly actually try and cause any havoc to Lily, or was she just?
And then I was like thinking, is Polly and Lily the same person?
Yeah, I thought that for
them
as well.
I was thinking that for a little bit.
Because when she first said, I am the pretty thing that lives in the house, I'm pretty sure there was a shot of Polly with Lily's voiceover. I was trying to think of that as well, if there is like a link. And then obviously Mrs. Blum calls her Polly the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this link between the two? This is what I was saying when I thought that I'd missed a bunch of things, but I don't think I did.
That's like, the movie was slow.
Like,
it was slow.
Painfully slow.
It was very slow.
grind.
And it wasn't until the back end that I'm like, so I rewound it to like see when was the first time that she put this orange vest on, or this yellow vest. She had that on when she walked through the door at the start.
Yeah, okay.
And that did my head, and I'm like, oh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that didn't.
You can still see the white shirt underneath.
Yeah, you can still see the
Yeah.
white shirt underneath. So I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, I just feel like there's something in there that's.
So do I. And you know what? Looking at some of the other things that Osgood Perkins has put in this film, we'd be crazy to think that there's not something that we've missed, and there's not something that maybe everyone's missed.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think anyone knew the bloody Pretty Polly folk song was linked to the entire story.
Yeah. So, are there any other themes or ideas that you can think of that you could pick up on? It was a tough one. It was a real tricky one.
Yeah.
It was. It's great talking about it though. That's the thing.
Yeah. So, what was good and what was bad about the film? Before we sort of finish up with I've got a few more questions.
But it was slow. Like
It was
every scene
slow,
lingered,
yeah.
and a lot of nothing happened in this whole film.
Yeah.
And it felt like they were like fluffing around just to get to 90 minutes.
Yeah, it really felt like nothing happened. I thought it was real. I guess like the shots really kind of artistic. It was really good artistic film. I liked a bit of the suspense in it, but I did just feel like nothing. I wasn't watching anything. It just felt like nothing was happening.
I didn't feel like there was any tension. Like, to me, I didn't feel any tension.
No, neither. And that's why I don't think it's not a classic horror film. If someone's like, hey, I want to watch a really creepy horror film, you wouldn't even consider it.
This isn't.
But if you said it's someone who really wanted
an art house horror film.
Yeah, think about. Because I didn't love this film. Like, I enjoyed talking about it. I enjoyed dissecting it, but the actual process sitting there watching it, I was left pretty underwhelmed.
It was hard. It was pretty long and boring.
I feel like this is the sort of film that would definitely benefit from being in a cinema. I feel like if you had no distractions, no lights, and all you're focusing on is the sound and the vision that you've got in front of you, I feel like you definitely would have benefited from it.
100% agree, and I think that with most horror films, but
Yeah.
I still can't get to the point of I really feel like I missed something, but the more I look at it, I'm like, I don't know if I did.
I think so, yeah.
But I want to give the director more credit than that.
Still a great film title though.
This is one of those. This is like, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but at times I have been known to watch films at double speed.
Yes, you have.
I haven't done it in quite a while, but I feel
good,
like
I'm glad.
this could have been a film that it wouldn't have mattered if I'd watched this on a double speed. It probably would have felt like a normal pace.
Yeah.
You would have lost, the director would have been annoyed at you. Like, you would have lost a bit of what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
From
Watching
just
double
like
speed now.
sitting there and
Content,
trying to watch
yeah.
a film, you wouldn't have lost much at all.
I've got a question for you because couldn't find it. I'm not sure if I missed it. Do we know what year the film was set?
It's pretty ambiguous about.
Wasn't it?
It was the old school phone on the wall, the TV with the antenna.
But it made a point. It made a point of that house being.
But what is it? Yeah, but was it kind of like in the 90s or something? It was just a really old house, or is this film set like?
I feel like the scenes with Polly and her husband were a lot prior to like
17, 18.
yeah, 100, 200 years prior, and then I feel like
So when Lily comes there, what years?
60s. Well, those cassettes.
No, but like I think that's a lot. Like, remember she's on the phone.
Yeah.
She makes a point at saying no because she's like, "Where are you?" She's like, "In the kitchen." And obviously, he goes like, "Why are you in the kitchen?" She's like, "Because that's where the phone is."
Yeah.
She's like, "No, it's got one of those cords on it." So it's not.
So maybe it's kind of recent. It's just a really
Yeah,
old
I think
house.
it's
that
recent-ish,
hasn't
and the house
updated.
is so old.
Yeah.
But then when you think about the end, when the ambulance and stuff comes to the house, the ambulance wasn't like it was a bit of an old-fashioned
Yeah,
sort
it
of
was. It
ambulance.
was an old.
And the cars that rocked up out the front of the house, they weren't modern sort of cars. Yeah, I
It's a
reckon
small town.
70s.
Because
Surely, even if the house is old, like if it was recent, she would have had a mobile phone, like to even text her friends on. So it must be pretty old.
She would have. I don't know if that's just taking a leap of faith that she doesn't. Like,
Yeah.
But that's probably that's like a good thing about the film is it's ambiguous
Yeah.
as to when it was set. You don't really.
It's modern time, but modern in the last 30 years, I would say. I don't think it'd be any older than that. I know you want to say 70s, 60s.
The TV was colour though.
Yeah, TV was.
And I want to talk about the TV scene too.
She made a point as well, being like, "Oh, I didn't think there was going to be a TV."
Yeah.
As if like, I can't believe there's no TV. Like,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But like, why did they have a cassette player and not a
because
CD
that's.
player?
But I think that's because this is old lady who's
Old
just
lady.
never moved.
Old house,
Moved on.
yeah.
Like,
Alright, so IMDb.
what the
Did
clues
anyone
are.
go on IMDb?
I jumped on when the estate manager comes in
Yep.
because it's Bob. What's his name?
Balaban.
Yeah, Bob Bellman, because he was in Mascots last week.
And he's Phoebe's dad from Friends.
Yeah. It's just I jumped straight. I'm pretty sure that's the guy from Mascots last week. So when I'm like, yep, it's the same guy. Is that the first actor who's been in
Back-to-backs?
back-to-back Netflix films? I think
Surely.
he might be.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I think he might be the first.
Adam Sandler had a bit of a gap.
Yeah, there was a couple of films in between. I reckon he might be the first white guy to be in back-to-back
Let's keep that in the back of
Netflix films.
Yeah.
This is just going to be something we need to keep in touch with.
When
Well
did you
done.
jump on?
Well, same thing.
Same thing.
I knew it was
Yeah.
him straight away because I'm
Yeah.
like, I saw you last week. And I IMDb'd him last week.
Nah, I didn't even jump on.
You knew?
I didn't even realise that he was in that film that we watched last week. So
You
sorry,
jump on
that
IMDb at all?
abomination that we watched last week. Just can't even call it a film.
Pretty pointless.
Pretty pointless,
movie last week. Again, he's another one though that in my readings of Oz Perkins, my new hero, he's like getting Bob Balaban on was just like the most amazing thing. Apparently, Bob Balaban's done a lot of directing, and he's like, when you, what the quote that I read was something like, when you get Bob Balaban, you get him the minute he walks in the door. Like he's
Yeah.
it's good.
That's good.
All I know him is Phoebe's pretty daddy friends.
All right, I've got a few questions.
Yes.
Got some things I want to talk about, discuss. So, Lily, the first time she picks up the book and looks at the book, she rubs the author's photo on the back and then pricks her finger. And then she gets that weird dot on her finger. And then we sort of see the similar scene where Polly does the same thing. Polly pricks her finger.
Where does she do that? On the wall?
On the wall,
Yeah.
in the house
yeah.
as well. So I don't know what it's trying to say. Is it trying to say that their lives are mirrored, or they're the same person?
There's definitely this link between the two of them. But do you wonder if there's a link because it's foreshadowing that she's also going to die in this house? Do you reckon that's as far as it goes? Polly died in this house. There's all these links like who's the pretty thing that lives in the house?
Mm-hmm.
Who's pricking her finger? Who's getting called that name? This person, you are going to have the same fate
to
as
that
Polly.
person.
I just thought of that then. And
It's
I
good,
think
I like
that's the
it.
closest.
On the
'Cause I
run.
agree. I can't think of any other
Yeah,
way.
I know.
Like I'm like, are they the same person? How they?
There was no joy in Lily at all. Like,
Nah.
did she enjoy what she's doing? What was the point in her doing the job then? Like, because
Yeah.
she wasn't earning if she was earning money towards it, she wasn't spending it on
She wasn't
anything.
going to spending it.
And we didn't hear any plans on her saving for anything or having this ambition of, hey, I'm just going to be here for 2 years and then get out.
It's a good point. Well, what was she doing?
Yeah, we didn't know her reasons for doing what she did
No.
at all. I mean, maybe it was kind of, I think it alluded to that she broke up with her fiance. Maybe it was trying to get away from that.
And then by the time she was in.
Yeah, she
stuck.
Yeah, by the time she was like, maybe she thought this is kind of like, maybe do it for a few months, but then she got too consumed she couldn't leave. Maybe it originally was an escape from a previous life.
Well,
I think you
where
need
a
to think
heartbreak.
that the beginning, the reason that she's there in the first place is to get away from that breakup, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's the only clue you get.
So, I really want to work out when we think she died. Because this is what's doing my head in. So, she spoke to the guy, she used the business card, called the guy on the phone to say, and he was going to come and look at the house on Monday.
Yep.
And then he arrives.
We don't know what day that was. Though.
We don't know when
So
he
it's
arrived.
within
So
a
we're
week,
guessing
though.
he arrived on the Monday.
At least 6 days.
And they were both dead when he arrived on the
So
Monday.
between her calling,
And
because you assume if she was a spirit at that point, she
wouldn't be able to call. Yeah. So between her calling and him arriving is when she died. So then I go back and think there's a scene where Blum is in the chair, so she was still alive, and Lily's lying on the bed watching TV. The TV's actually on. They're actually watching something.
They're watching VHS though.
They're watching a VHS.
Yeah.
So it's the first time I've seen the TV on.
Yeah.
The first time I've seen it working. Why do they choose? Are they both dead already? And the only reason the TV is working is so they're both dead.
Oh, I got
Maybe.
I got the vibe that they the TV just doesn't get reception. I think they can still use VHS.
So why? Like
Yeah,
she tried twice to make that TV work.
Yeah,
Why didn't she work out? Oh, there's a VHS. I'll chuck a VHS in and watch something. And why is she all of a sudden watching that TV?
Maybe there wasn't a good collection of movies.
It's a
Maybe
great
she got
question.
desperate.
It's a great question.
I just feel like you see it twice, and then the third time it's working. I feel like that's something significant.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe they're dead. Then.
I've got no idea.
I'd love it if they were, man. I'd love it if there was something that a clue. Keep going through this.
Okay, and then the other thing that really got to me was towards the end we see there's a shot of Blum typing on the typewriter. So it's obviously in the
she's
past
younger.
when she's younger. And then Lily is standing in the doorway.
Yep.
And then Blum turns around, looks in the doorway. There's no one there from her point of view. But then Blum's yelling for Polly.
Yeah.
It's like she senses her there though. But Lily is there in the... So has Lily turned into Polly at this stage? Because Polly was already haunting the house when Blum was writing the book, but we can see that Lily's actually there when she's writing it as well.
Or is it to do with the fact that now that Lily's dead, does Polly go? So now
Polly's free.
Free or no, it's Lily's house now. Because remember, you own the house. The person who dies owns the house effectively.
But if she had gone, then why is she there in that
I don't know
past?
whether she can find her memories or. It's a great question, and I'm sure
there was this quote. She goes, "It's a terrible thing to look at oneself, and all the whole seeing nothing." So going back to my reflection thing, has she been looking in the reflections and not seeing herself in the reflections because she's already dead?
She's dead. Yeah, that makes sense.
And the whole idea is that...
But didn't she say that after she was dead?
Well, I think that was after she'd had that conversation in the bathroom when she was brushing her hair and she'd said, "You're nothing anymore, you walk backwards with your feet," sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then we go down and see her walk through the kitchen backwards and come out around that. I don't know, this movie, I want answers. I really want answers.
Yeah. You know what, the most plausible is probably the wrong word for it, but the thing that would fit in the most is if there was this link, this really strong link between Lily and Polly that we can't put our finger on.
No. And I don't know.
This is the first episode that we've recorded where we're just dumbfounded. But that's why I told you I looked really deep into this to see what I could find, and in answer to your question, I honestly think she died at the end. I really do. And I think there's some kind, at the end when you think she died, I think that's when she died. And I think after that, she became the ghost in the house. I think Polly was no longer in that house. And I think there's obviously some kind of connection where she can look through the past and the history of the house. Don't know why, but I think there's something to do with that, where she does go back in time and sees Blum when she's younger.
So if she died on the staircase in that night when she does that choking sort of thing, and then we see the builder dude come to look at the wall and he's knocking on the door.
She's a spirit.
It's her spirit.
100%. Yeah.
Yep. So when they find her body, where's her body in the house?
As soon as he opens the door.
I think,
Because he opens.
But we're saying she died upstairs.
No. She comes down. She's at the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah, she's on the staircase.
She's at the bottom of the stairs, and then she goes into the corner. No, because when she sees Polly, she's almost in the corner right near the front door.
Yeah, but I thought the corner she was on was in halfway down the staircase.
No. She was down. She was at the bottom of the stairs.
I think she was on the ground level.
So when Bob Balaban opens the door, he sees her immediately.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's really I just feel like she had to be dead before then.
Do you reckon we should do a follow-up episode of this, and we'll get Osgood Perkins on the podcast?
If you listen to this and you have some answers for us, please let us know so I can share it with our audience, because this has really
we're intrigued.
I'm very intrigued.
We're stumped.
And that's probably leading us into almost our ratings, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I started off really being okay, this film is really slow. It's travelling along pretty slowly, and I don't know how I'm going to get any enjoyment out of it. But I was contemplating giving it a low score, but the questions that it started bringing up for me, and it started intriguing me, and like you said before, after the film finished, I got online to have a look and see what were other people saying about this film, what were they thinking, and everyone was saying different sort of stuff anyway. I don't think it really matters. And that's a good thing about film, is that everyone can come up with their own interpretation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's what a good film, or what a film's supposed to do. So even though it may not have done it in the best way prior or leading up to it, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 still, because of the intrigue it created after the watching of the film. That whole experience.
Fair point.
Peter.
I thought the film was really artistic. It looked good. There was a lot of good suspense in there, but I just felt like still not much really happened, and I did find the film really boring and a struggle to watch. I gave it a 1.5 out of 5.
All right. And MJ.
Look, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I enjoyed trying to find more about this film. I thought the premise as a whole really had legs, and I was actually impressed with parts of the opening as a horror fan. I thought it fell off a cliff a little bit after that. I think the narrative really acted like it had these layers that may or may not have been there, which we're still trying to figure out. I think the only real character didn't really pull me along for the ride. Despite a couple of good scares, that real slow pace ensured that they were really too far spread out. So I'm actually going to give it 2.5 stars, which comes to an average of 2.33 from the three of us.
Good. So it's middle of the ground, I guess. Yeah, I think that the experience of talking about it after sort of definitely made it a lot better for me.
Yeah, me too. And I'm not done with it. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's like I want to know.
Yeah.
I really want to know what the meaning of it was. Question of the week this week on social media.
What did this film mean?
We can go with that. I'm happy to. What did this?
What was your question?
I've just gone. So, have you ever visited or been to a place that you thought was haunted? You had any creepy feelings anywhere in your life where you've just gone, oh, that felt a bit off?
Yeah, I reckon I have.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, definitely.
can you think of anything? I can't, but I'm hoping our audience
Top of my head, but I'm sure
have a think about it. We
definitely,
might post our own thoughts on there once we've had a chat later in the week.
Do you guys believe in ghosts?
No.
No, I don't.
No, I don't.
At least one of us then.
So please get on there, our social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, @FlixForum, to answer that question this week. We'd love you to subscribe as usual. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, get us up into those charts. We haven't been in there for a while. We'd like to.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. We'd like to get
Give
out.
us a really big rush when that happens.
Download it multiple times. Download it, listen, delete, re-download, whatever you need to do. Get us in
Or
there.
just listen to it, enjoy it, tell your friends.
Yeah. Watch the movie and have a listen.
Even if you don't, we enjoy it. So
Yeah.
So
We'll keep
next,
chatting about it.
well, next week's going to be interesting because we're going to be looking at a Spanish drama film, 2016 film called Años. Seven Años, which is 7 years in English. It's directed by Roger Gual, starring Juana Acosta and Alex Brendamul. So take the time to sit back, watch this film.
get your subtitles on this
Get
week.
subtitles on this
Either
week.
that or learn
But
Spanish
so
real quick.
surely the subtitles will automatically come up for me.
I don't know, I might have to download the
Oh,
translator.
yeah, you're just this pig-headed English speaker that thinks everything should be on a platter for you.
So we're going to enjoy this one next week, I hope. Got no idea what it's about, but really looking forward to it. As usual,
I'm exhausted after that.
I feel really tired.
I'm sorry.
It was
Yeah,
tough. It was a struggle, but thank you again. Really good.
Sorry we didn't give you more answers.
Yeah.
Stop asking hard questions.
This is the first one that's sort of stumped us.
This podcast is by film lovers for film lovers. We don't promise to have all the answers.
Yeah.
We enjoy talking about it.
Plenty of hard questions on you.
If you've got the answers, let us know.
All right, so we'll see you guys next week.
See you, boys.
Bye.